1, 2, 3, do-do-do. Yeah. Welcome friends to the CCC TUG, where fresh ideas begin to bud. From every campus near and far, we bloom through every chart and bar, planting seeds of insight here, with dashboards growing year by year. So grab your coffee, take your seat, let inspiration blossom sweet. Spring into data, watch it grow, with fresh picked insights from San Diego. From PCC maps to custom UI delight, we're helping dashboards blossom bold and bright. Down beneath the San Diego sun, Tableau conference was second to none. We're bringing back all the things to share, from sessions and ideas that blossom there. Then Peter and Darnell proudly bring Pasadena City College into spring, with the GIS dashboard built with care, mapping student stories everywhere. Spring into data, watch it grow, with fresh picked insights from San Diego. From PCC maps to custom UI delight, we're helping dashboards blossom bold and bright. Lisa's showing brand new ways to move beyond defaults today. Buttons blooming, custom UI insights, interactive moments that feel just right. At the CCC TUG, the gardens grow, with blooming insights. Row by row, we cultivate new ways to see and plant fresh roots in community. Spring into data, watch it grow, with fresh picked insights from San Diego. From PCC maps to custom UI delight, we're helping dashboards blossom bold and bright.
Okay, welcome everybody to our May meeting, where we are going to spring into data. We have on our agenda I skipped a slide. So we are your leaders of the CCC Tableau user group. So we have Kim Coots from Miracosta College. I'm Sam Homeyer from Everett Community College, which is not in California, but that's okay. And then we have Lisa Trescott, also from Miracosta College. And on our agenda today, we have an announcement. We're going to go over a recap from what happened at the Tableau conference last week. And then we have Darnell Calderon and Peter Dwight here to show their GIS student map dashboard from Pasadena City College. And then our very own Lisa Trescott will be presenting her talk from the conference last week about moving beyond defaults within Tableau. Oh yeah, and today is National Frog Jumping Day, so hence our theme and where we got it from. So you will see a lot of frogs throughout. And so let's go ahead and spring right in. So our announcement is about Analytics Day, which is a free virtual mini conference happening on June 11th. It's hosted by Appalachian State. It's from 8:30 to 5 p.m., but you don't have to attend all day. Last year, I was able to just jump in wherever I could. The sessions are about 20 to 30 minutes each. If you make sure to register by May 28th. And the guest speaker this year is Andy Kriebel, who is a Tableau goat. He is one of the original goats of Tableau. So it's actually pretty noteworthy that he's going to be there this year. He will also be at our August meeting, just a little springing forward, foreshadowing. And so, yes, little spoiler alert. So let's get right into our Tableau conference recap. So Kim, Lisa, and I were all able to go this year. And If you were not able to attend, then there is Salesforce Plus, where we did see some of you there. So if you were there and you said hi to us, thank you so much. But yeah, if you were not able to attend, then it is free to stream some of the sessions on Salesforce Plus. Not all of them were recorded, but a good number of them were. And so this QR code will take you there, and then Lisa put the link in the chat to go directly there. And then here we have our very own Celia Fryer, who is an education speaker. Yeah. These are some of the sessions that were recorded that were by education, people who are in higher education that gave talks or were related to education. So Drexel University, University of San Francisco, Louisiana Tech, and then Tableau Accessibility, which I know with WCAG, we're all talking about that, right? So that one's very, very helpful. And then how to do cool stuff in Tableau with the Flare Lodge twins is always a good one to see. And Ken used to be in higher ed, so it's still somewhat education adjacent. Next, one of the best sessions at the conference actually is Devs on Stage, and this is where they announce and showcase new features being released in the upcoming versions. And it's one of, not only is it very insightful for what's coming, but they also make it very fun every year. So if you're able to watch it, you're gonna love what you see. It's just one of the most fun talks at the conference. They make it a little competitive, lots and lots of puns. So if you love puns, you're gonna love Devs on Stage. Yeah. Here are the features that they announced. There's quite a bit. So Kim, Lisa, and I are just gonna kind of talk about our favorite ones real quick, but as you can see, they announced so many things at the conference this year. And it was actually very exciting to get to see them live. So first, the one that I really like, and I'm very excited for if we are able to get it, is the Tableau add-in for Excel and PowerPoint. If your executive leadership team is anything like mine, they are going to love this, and it will be used quite a bit from what I can tell. So I'm very, very excited for those two things to come in. And then I think, yeah, you can put Tableau views right into Excel. So from what they showed, I should have brought in a picture from the video, but what they showed is you have like a PowerPoint slide, and then on the left-hand or right-hand side, there's just a little Tableau thing, and you can pull things in, and it was beautiful. I loved it. I was so excited. And then next, Kim is going to talk about Tableau data sources on public.
Yeah, this is another one of those game changer ones. For those of you who are in colleges where you're exclusively or predominantly on Tableau Public, you will be able to save your data sources there. One of the things I find most frustrating in Tableau Public is when I download a workbook that I want to recreate or emulate, and I want to see what the data structure looks like. Not being able to get to that is really frustrating. So being able to have that saved there is going to be a game changer, both for personal public profiles as well as professional ones.
And then my favorite thing that they announced was chart layers. So it's basically like map layers, but for all charts. So if you've ever wanted to make beyond a dual axis chart with maybe 3 or 4 or 5 axes, however many you want, you will now be able to do that. There are literally every day, I'm like, I just want one more axis here, but you don't want to do the whole like hack with the map layers and normalize stuff. And it's just like, no, I'm not doing that for a live work dashboard. Now they're coming out with chart layers. So I feel like I'm going to be pretty obsessed. You're going to see a lot of 3, 4, 5 layer charts in our dashboards coming up very soon. But I will also say pretty much everything that the dev Roxanne announced, if you watch Devs on Stage, I was like, yes. They're all going to make our lives a lot better. And Kim, you've got to let spell check go. It's not coming. So yeah, definitely watch Devs on Stage if you have not. The other thing that's always super fun at the conference is Iron Viz. So this year, there are always three contestants, but two of the contestants, Kevin and Brian, have both presented at the CCC TUG, as a name dropping. We got to get the newest winner of Iron Viz, Ann Pregler, here. So we'll start knocking on her door to see if we can get her to present. But all three of them made some really spectacular vizzes about books. It was all Goodreads data. We'll get those links in the chat for you guys. Definitely check them out. It's always so impressive to see what people can create 20 minutes. Brian told us that he can create his in 8 minutes. So just mega flex on his part. He also did some really cool stuff that he also, I feel like, did for our presentation, where he built it all in one sheet. Yeah, Kim's on your head. I was like, oh, this looks familiar, Brian. So definitely check out those vizzes. Watch Iron Viz if you can, because it's very exciting and inspiring. Over to Kim.
Okay, one of the things that is really, from an educational perspective, groundbreaking with regards to Tableau is that we had 2 sessions specific to education that were hands-on. Tableau has never had hands-on trainings that were specific to an industry, which is super cool. The best part about it is that they were using the new Super School data set. I don't know how many of you have been frustrated when you're trying to learn Tableau and the only data that you have to work with is Superstore, and you can't figure out how to make success and retention turn into profits and sales margins. Really, really frustrating. A team of us from the CCC TUG, as well as the higher ed TUG, K-12, a number of different folks collaborated with Tableau to have them build our own Super School database, which will be amazing and really helpful for those of us in education who want to learn, but learn with data that's relevant to our world, so you don't have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to get through it. So there were 2 sessions at the Tableau conference that were hands-on, both of them very well attended. This is our first go around with this data set. So once it's available for folks, we want folks to play with it, give feedback, because it's going to be in a constant state of improvement as we go forward. And once we get Super School done and together, then we're going to move into Super District that will help some of our K-12 partners as well as our multi-college districts navigate some of those data sets. So this is a big win for the colleges. Yes, let's move on to the, we did have 160 there. I was thinking about the other one. Let's go on to the next slide. Thank you for everybody that came to the education meetup that was unfortunately scheduled at 8 a.m. the night after Data Night Out, which seemed like cruel and unusual punishment, but it was so much fun and really nice to meet everyone, to kind of get people's experiences, what they're working on, give out some prizes, talk about the data sets and all things Tableau. So I am very grateful for everybody who attended there. We all are. And we look forward to next year, which will again be in San Diego. So for those of you who are in the area, it's not going to be a far bit to travel. And the prices for the conference have declined significantly. So hopefully it's not as cost prohibitive as it once may have been. Okay. Now we are going to introduce our speakers for the day. Peter Dwight and Darnell Calderon are from Pasadena City College, and they're going to be doing a presentation on GIS mapping, which is super cool. I have the intros here, maybe. Yes, Peter Dwight has been a business analyst at Pasadena College for 12 years, but has been in IR/OIE for 20 years, or over 20 years. Records show his first Tableau dashboard was from 2018. Darnell Calderon has been a research and planning analyst at Pasadena City College for 3.5 years. He's used Tableau since starting at PCC and feels like he's on a decades-long journey of learning and understanding Tableau. Same. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you guys and let you take it away.
Thank you, Kimberly. Let me share a screen. That worked. Yeah, hi everyone. Peter Dwight here, and you just heard my amazing story, and I'll let my coworker Darnell introduce himself.
Yeah, so I've been at PCC for 3.5 years. I'm the designated non-credit research analyst, but they have me doing all sorts of other stuff, such as what you see in front of you here. So,
Yeah, so Darnell's actually been the one that will periodically update this dashboard for us. So, but when we were asked to present, we decided, okay, maybe we should understand what one of our old analysts did, Dustin Tamashiro. And if you've met him, you know him. He's a very bright guy, but very detailed when it comes to everything he builds. So we're going to kind of walk you through kind of the Frankenstein monster he put together last time and kind of our walkthrough, kind of understanding and rebuilding it ourselves. So we're like, we could finally understand what he did. So I'm going to paste the link there so you can kind of just follow along with the dashboard as we go. And there's that. And off to the races. So there's a link there. So for when we share this later, you can get it from there. But one more thing, this dashboard, this Tableau dashboard was a good, it made me appreciate the name TUG for the Tableau user group anymore, because there is a big tug of war going on when you're trying to do GIS mapping in Tableau. So we're going to walk you through some of that, and hopefully, it doesn't scare you off too much. But yeah. So first and foremost, those that built GIS maps, wanting to get pretty much these shape files, these off of ArcGIS, which is probably the most popular way to get them. You can search anything, you can search your grandma's backyard, ArcGIS, and be able to get a layout of that. So for our case, we can search PCC, Pasadena City College district. We can search Pasadena, area, and just with ArcGIS, we get that. And actually, our website has a map downloader already, which is our primary one that we use. But I think we also had a different one with different districts as well. But so if you just Google ArcGIS and your locations, there's a plethora of opportunities. And it's more trial and error to really see what you like. With ours, some improvements I would like to make if I ever get around to it, to add to it. But for right now, it works. So, and so as you can see on the right there, you're going to get multiple files based off of just these shape files. And pretty much, you're not going to touch these. You're just going to watch, you're going to look at their map viewer sample before you download it, and then just plug this in to Tableau, because Tableau will know what to do with it. All the odds and ends are a little tricky on our side. So next slide. So we got the shapefile that maps everything into Tableau, but we need longitude and latitude for our own data to map. And how one would come about mapping all these addresses into longitude, latitude. Best way we found, 10,000 records at a time, using the US Census batch address locations mapper. So nice summer job if you have some student assistants or something, they could just start popping these in, exporting them in, and they actually give you some mapping. So on the right table, that's essentially all you need to submit. So give yourself an identifier code, don't have to put any IDs in there, but an address, and then below what you get, say if there's a match. So if they're able to match it to an actual longitude, latitude, and they'll give you a rating on the mapping there. I don't know if it's there, but there will be exact match, say no match, or nothing at all. So one thing we can do, we have a database on our own. We have an ODS, operational data storage, where we actually upload these for our own use to just store our student mappings. So if we ever wanted to, just have exact mappings of our students, we would have the longitude, latitude for the addresses we have for them on record. But actually, I got an email literally 2 days ago saying, hey, I'm able to drill down to someone's specific house and see this thing. And I say, it's okay. Dustin Tamashiro many years ago created an elaborate scrambling of the longitude, latitude. So it's nearby, but it's not exact to where it's supposed to be based off of this scramble code. And this is where I brought in Darnell for the hard lifting to explain some of this scrambling code that Dustin built years ago.
Goodness. All right, so this is my best trying to like oversimplify what our old senior analyst Dustin Tamashiro was up to. And by the way, he spent like several years like getting these batch uploads, like going from like University of Michigan, but now you have to like pay to get those coordinates. So the census one I believe is free. So really the key to scrambling or randomizing the longitude and latitude coordinates is using SQL developers DBMS random function. So essentially what that does, it generates like a random value every time that you run it. So I have like an oversimplified like syntax of that, what that code looks like. But it's honestly just far more complicated than this. Like it really is a headache. But really we use this randomization process to apply it for both coordinates. So really it's looking at like the average longitude based on like the same student ID, student zip code, and then the term that they have that address associated. And then it just adds a random value between negative 0.033 and 0.33. It's, like I said, far more complicated, but that's like the basic gist of like what Dustin was doing when he was creating this scrambling. So that way, it masks the true coordinate values. So the locations are, like Peter said, they're pretty close to the real average, but they're not exactly like the coordinates. So I have like an oversimplified example. So let's say we have our actual coordinates from like the census geocoder that are associated with like a particular student address. So we have our latitude as like 34, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the longitude there. So if we apply that randomizer process that I mentioned earlier, we get scrambled coordinates that are mostly similar. So you'll notice the digits in bold, they're the same, but the last 5 digits are different in like a random way. So the scrambled coordinates aren't like wildly off. They're within like the neighborhood block that a student lives in. So once we put all that data together, then it's finally ready to get shoved into the Tableau. So I'll pass it back to Peter.
Another thing on this, we kind of every week in our system we rerun this, so the scrambler code kind of gets frozen at different times. So every time we update the Tableau, it's going to be different than how it was before. So if we ever set up something, more consistently refreshing, it would be different every time. So students would jump around. At least the heat sink would jump around. So that's a little security. But those who have a Tableau Cloud, Tableau Server, you are already behind some security, so you could actually get actual mappings for that. But since this is public facing, we have that. You could ask questions about that later, and Darnell will be happy to answer that. So on the Tableau, getting everything in the Tableau end, this was a fun tug of war. But pretty much by inserting the output data that we have scrambled and the shapefiles and putting that into Tableau, we're just able to pull some of these demographics that we want. We have these demographics in the data set, so we can do some filters on that within. So we haven't really changed these in a while, but there's other things that we could work into that as well. And big tricky part is in the joins. So I actually had to find some YouTube videos to kind of help me at this part, because even when I saw what Dustin had done, I couldn't replicate it. So the main thing is the shape files, they'll call it geometry. It's a longitude, latitude, but you can work into different functions to kind of allow it to work. So he has some high school codes blocked off for this. So I actually have no idea why I did it, but so that was in there. So you can actually pinpoint certain things. So if you don't want to see your neighboring district at all, you could block it out here and just pinpoint stuff like that. So that would all be worked into the join. Oh, and they rename your fields for you in Tableau. I'm sure you've experienced that here and there. And that will break what you want to link to the shape files. So capitals versus lowercase, there's an underscore, there's a space, or they just decided to change the name, abbreviate it for you or change it. So kind of turning that off is an option as well. You can actually just say stop. I didn't put that in here, but you can actually just stop the automatic renaming. All right. And here's a couple shots on kind of what how it needs to look on the front end for it to work. But the main thing, just to get it to work, you got to make sure you have the map, but you won't see anything even with that. You got to bring up the map layer. So I believe it's a right click just on the map chart, and then you start adding these in, and then that's what you start seeing the data kind of popping up there. Main things you need to work on, longitude, latitude, to get that in there as well. You'll have to play with the dimensions versus the measurements, the measures, because Tableau has a mind of its own, tug of war. And then you also got to play around with the shelf and the marks to kind of find the right setup. So Darnell and our other coworker were sitting with me when we're trying to get this to work on my version. Just this last step alone was just like, what is going on? So we're I was pulling my hair out, and he saw what happened. So yeah. And so here's how kind of the working final one looks. So if you guys have your Tableau open right now, you can play around with these, but it's on the back end for this, how it is. So some updates I would like to do, I'd actually like to have some actual borders around, our districts, so you can actually see which one, what exactly the districts are. We are assuming, and we can choose what the districts are. But if we see that on the thing, so a lot of things we can do, and a lot of stuff we haven't played around with because, it's Tableau. Once you make it, you don't want to mess with it, right? So, and I think that's it. Any questions?
How has this been received by your campus community?
It is actually very popular. They enjoy it very much. We've been asked to make one for just applicants so we can see where certain high school areas are not applying as much as they used to, doing heat maps, stuff like that. So even though, it's great, you kind of get the idea. I actually personally would like more numbers on here. So to know actually what numbers are we looking at if I highlight it, how many students are we talking about in these certain heat sink areas? So that's one thing I would update if I had time. But no, it's actually a very popular dashboard. I think it's just because it looks very pretty, and they didn't have to build it. So, but we are actually a few years behind on our address updating. So thankfully, the way Dustin built this code, if you just have zips and addresses and no longitude latitude, it actually, kind of, how old Craigslist and old mapping would just put you in the center of the town. So at least we're getting mappings. And what do you do? They'll kind of average it between similar locations in his scramble code. So we still get people mapped on students mapped into our dashboard, even though we haven't put their actual address into our tables yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of data quality issues with student addresses at MiraCosta. I know Kim has banged her head against a wall many times with that. Do you guys find that you've had issues with that as well, or?
Yes. So we have a hierarchy kind of table set up where it picks the most recent, the best, and in the primary. So that has helped, but it's kind of once the student leaves, what happens, if they decide to update their address once they leave, we can't really know about that. So at least for the main part, we're picking the primary of their 5 to 10 addresses that they have in there. I don't think he's, removing anything that is outside of the districts or anything like that, but it's a code that's been working for us for a while. So we'll just tweak it and update it here and there. Yeah.
We have a question from Carol, who said, why do you need to put an average on the latitude versus longitude and latitude? Oh, it looks like Darnell already answered.
Oh, well, I could explain though, but Peter and I were going back and forth. I was like, why did Dustin Thomashear do this to us? He has so many different measures to make sure that the student coordinates are protected, so that way nobody could really locate them. But I've never changed that. I run it because I don't want to like really break anything. So even I was like, there's no documentation as to why he did that. I'm like, I feel like even taking without the averages and then doing the rest of all of the randomized value added would be sufficient in my opinion. So, but I'm guessing that he took an average because he just took extreme lengths to make sure that nobody could really find where any student could live, I guess. So that's my best guess.
And Darnell didn't mention it, but there's actually a standard deviation in there. And I was like, oh man, we got standard deviations. So yes,
why?
That's
so yeah, it definitely masks it and more is what it does. But if I were building this on my own from scratch, I would use a different method to mask. But that's how we did it, and it works. Sometimes I'm surprised. It's like, hey, well, it works pretty well. They're not like in a field somewhere. They're actually in a building.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some there living in a field according to our map, but.
Can I ask a question? The average, what is the average over? Like, I mean, what's the grouping feature?
Yeah, so the grouping, I provided some of the groups, but it has to do with the student ID, academic period, and like the zip code based on like the most recent academic period. I know where you're getting at, Emil, because these are like window functions. So I did want to put like all of the groupings there, so that way we can keep track of how he's getting an average of the longitude, but it just we'd have to talk about it for so long to have it to make sense. So apologies if oversimplifying is kind of confusing folks, but those were some of the groupings that I see throughout these window functions, I guess, that Dustin was using. So I hope that answers your question.
And we're happy to share the code that does the randomizer with anybody.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. I could
see.
share my screen and show you this horror that that we've so I'm just yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to just jump in. Looks like David has one in the comments.
Yeah, here, I'll show you like a little screenshot of it, I guess. I guess I can put it in the chat and see what this is a part of. If it allows me to, so that I think that way it'll clear up some folks' questions down here.
Do you want to share or do you want to just put it in the chat?
I'll put it in the chat so y'all could
Okay.
have a look. So that's just like one little snippet of what he's doing, but you can see there like what the averages kind of refer to. So I think, oh yeah, you can pull it up here. It hurts me.
Do you have the
It hurts.
longitude latitude randomizer?
It hurts me. Yeah, this is how Dustin was scrambling. Oh, okay. Well, this is before he scrambled it even further. So this is
that's the address.
Yeah. Oh, here, let me send you another one though. You see what I mean? This isn't this, it hurts me to look at this, It doesn't even fit in the screenshot. I'm so sorry. This is like a funny looking screenshot I'm about to attach, but This is real life, you know.
Tug of war. So
We were talking in the chat when you guys were getting started about the fact that anytime you take on somebody else's dashboard, you're really taking on a challenge and trying to understand, even when it's completely documented, there are going to be little tweaks and things that you're going to go, I don't know how this works. It works, don't know how, and what the rationale was for it. So, brave souls.
yeah,
Yeah,
so here are the two main ones: longitude, latitude, randomizer,
and you can't
codes.
see it because it's cut out, but he multiplies it by a value of 0.001. So that's where the 0.033 and comes from. But it just didn't fit because you see what I mean? It's just it goes onto the second screen, you know.
Yes. Please reach out. We'll send it to you. You can figure,
Yeah,
and when you figure it out, you let us know.
if you let us know, yeah, I'll
I
be
threw
like,
it into
thank you.
ChatGPT as like, could you explain this in basic English?
Yeah, are you willing to share the code with folks so they know how to?
Well, oh yeah, this kind of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
this kind of stuff because it's
Uh,
not.
the entity UID, that would be like a student ID
That
kind of
is the
thing,
student
right?
Yeah,
IDs. Yeah.
it
I see. Okay.
is. Yeah, it does make it seem very like, whoa, they're like these beings that we're getting address coordinates from, you know, entities, you know, deities.
Well, if there are no more questions, I don't want to cut anything off too soon. If there are no more questions, we appreciate you coming and speaking with us today and sharing a lot of really hard and great work. And we look forward to seeing what else is available soon, what you guys are building next. Pasadena City College is all on Tableau Public. So if you are looking for inspiration, that's a great site to go and visit and explore. And thank you again. It looks like, yeah, in Washington, our student IDs are called EMPL ID. It makes me think we're all employees. Yes.
Ours are called EMPL IDs here at Miracosta.
Same. The joys of PeopleSoft. Yeah.
Yeah, those people saw person UID is banner. So
Mm.
person UIDs.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you
Okay.
again. And with that, I will hand it over to Lisa, who's going to do her presentation from the Tableau conference that was very well received, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, major props for taking on someone else's workbook. I don't even like to reverse engineer my own workbooks after I've built them. So you're doing great work. I tried to turn my video on 3 separate times and got an error message. So you will not be seeing me today because I didn't want Zoom to crash. So yeah, with that, we're going to be talking today all about how to design beyond the defaults in Tableau, taking your workbooks from just kind of the default things that Tableau provides to creating a more customized design experience for your users. Everything I talk about today, I also have in a blog post. So there's a QR code here. Perhaps either Kim or Sam could put this link in the chat. You could just go to lisatrescott.com and find it in the blogs as well. But if you want a written kind of walkthrough of everything after this is over, this is a great place to go. And we're going to talk about, first up, what are UI and UX and why do we care about them? I'll show you some examples of things you can create in Tableau. And then I will go into the 5-step process that I use to create all of these things. And then I'll do a live build for you all so you can kind of see it in action. So first up, what are UI and UX? Why do we want them to be good? So super simply, UI is anything that you can see and touch in your dashboard. If you can see it and you can touch it, it is part of UI, which stands for user interface. So these are all the things like colors and icons and fonts. And today's presentation is primarily focused on the inputs, the things that you can touch and interact with. So think drop-down menus and buttons and things like that. The counterpart of UI is UX, or user experience. It's all about how does it feel to work and how does it work, your dashboard. So it's more like the vibes that your dashboard gives off. What is the experience that your user has as they interact with this dashboard? You know, is it efficient? Is it functional? Do things work? And When I first started learning about UI and UX, I had a hard time parsing them apart. I just thought, well, if UI is good, then UX is also going to be good. But that is very far from the truth. And I stumbled upon an analogy that really kind of helped me understand this better. And it's thinking about UI and UX in terms of a restaurant. So think about when you walk into a restaurant, all of the things that you can see and touch, right? You can see and touch the menu, right? What does it look like? What's the design on there and the layout? The ambiance, right? The lighting, the decor, what's what's on the floor? What do the lights fixtures look like? Is it clean? You might see some dirt on the floor, right? Your menu might be a little sticky. On the other hand, there are other things that are going to impact your experience at a restaurant, right? If you wait several hours for your table and you sit down hangry, you're probably not having a great experience, right? You could also have wait staff that is very attentive and friendly and meeting all of your needs before you have to ask. Or you could have a wait staff that maybe is a little hard to find and you're constantly having to flag down. You could get the complete wrong order, right? This is not what I wanted. So both of these things are going to impact, these things are going to impact your experience, whereas you can go into a restaurant that looks great and have a terrible experience, or vice versa. The same is true of your dashboard. So let's look at where your dashboards can fall on the spectrum of UI and UX. First off, you can have dashboards down here. We don't want this. These are plain, clunky dashboards. These are dashboards that don't look very good and they don't function very well, right? This is likely where we all start off. It's definitely where I started off. I would just make some charts. I'd throw them on a dashboard without thinking about how people were going to interact with it or how they were going to use it or how it looked. I now like to call these my trash boards, right? I will still find some of these lurking in old files at work, and I think, oh, there's my little trash board. People don't use these. They don't like them. They don't look good, and they don't function, so they're not going to go back. You're not going to go back to a restaurant that looks terrible and you have a bad experience, right? Same is true of these dashboards. Alternatively, you could have a dashboard that looks really good, right? It looks great, it's very pretty, but it doesn't function. This would be good UI, but bad UX. I think of these as clickbait dashboards. These are ones that maybe you see on Tableau Public. You're like, ooh, that looks beautiful. And you get in there and you start clicking around. And I was like, oh, that filter doesn't work. This navigation button doesn't go where I thought it was going to go. And I don't know where to look to find the things that I need. Right? You're not going to go back to a restaurant that looks great on Instagram, but then you have a terrible experience at. You're also not going to go back to dashboards that don't work. You could also have a dashboard up here where you have maybe less fortunate UI, but really good UX. So these are dashboards that might not look very good, but they do function. And I personally think this is where the majority of Tableau dashboards live. It is absolutely where my dashboards live for a very long time. And I think the reason for that is because the UI of Tableau itself, not my favorite. It's kind of blah, right? It's not all that great, and it hasn't changed very much in a very long time. And just to really exemplify that point, I am going to do a pop quiz. I want you all to put into the chat what version you think this screenshot I'm about to show is from. Okay, so just whatever version you think, go ahead and throw it into the chat now. What version of Tableau does this look like to you all? Kim and Sam are not allowed to participate because they already know. Nobody. No takers? Okay, here we go. 2023, 2020, 10, 2025. Kim, you should know. 2024. Okay, so there is one winner, and actually, Vinny, I should have called you out too because you were at this presentation at the conference. It is from version 10. So congratulations, Vinny, for getting this one right. I pulled this screenshot from a blog post called Hello World, It's Tableau 10. I chose Tableau 10 because that's the version that I started on. And it's almost a decade old now. And I think just from the fact that people were guessing, 2024, 2023, should show you that things haven't changed. But I'll show you for real because I tried to recreate this screenshot as best I could in the most recent version of Tableau, 2026.1. And this is what it looks like. It's very similar, right? Sure, there are a couple of differences. You can see, the dimensions and measures are separated a little bit differently, and there's some differences in the show me if we go back to look at Tableau 10. But let's be real, they're the same picture, right? There is very little difference here between these two versions of Tableau, and they're almost 10 years apart. Like, that's a lot. And my goal here is not to, throw Tableau under the bus. I really love Tableau. Loving Tableau feels like a core personality trait at this point for me. But it's an analytics tool. So the focus of Tableau is analytics. It's not design. I once heard Elisa Davis describe Tableau as an analytics tool with a design hobby. And that's absolutely correct. That's exactly what it feels like when you use Tableau, right? Analytics is at the forefront, design is at the back, and not very much has changed. Case in point, if we look at drop-down menus, right? One of the main inputs that Tableau provides for us, when you added a drop-down in Tableau 10, it looked like this. And if you add a drop-down today in 2026.1, it looks like this. And there's very little ability to change these things or customize them to be in line with your school colors or whatever it is, right? You can add some shading, you can add a border, and very recently you can round the corners, which finally, right? If you all went to the conference last year or you watched Devs on Stage, you might remember how excited people were that Tableau was introducing rounded corners. Like, mind blown. They even brought it up in the keynote again this year because it was like their mic drop moment of Devs on Stage. Like, hey guys, you can round the corners now. And it's like, okay, we should have been able to do that a long time ago. This is really basic modern UI. It should have already been there. So because Tableau lags a little bit in the design and UI department, we have to do a little bit of work on our own to get our dashboards up here to this sweet spot, right? Where UI and UX are both firing on all cylinders. These are dashboards that look good and they function well. These are 5-star Yelp review restaurants. People are going back to these restaurants time and time again. People are also going to keep going back to dashboards because they're fun to use. They look good and they get their needs met. So let's take a look at some examples in Tableau of how you can elevate the UI above what Tableau provides to you. So this workbook is on my Tableau public profile. We can get the link in the chat as well. But it's going to show a bunch of examples of things that you can design in Tableau to elevate this. Oops, it opened up on my other screen. What are you doing, Tableau? Oh, it did it again. I need you on this screen. There we go. Okay, so I have 6 examples here in this menu. The first one is a toggle. So we've talked about toggles in this TUG before. I use them a lot to change between 2 things, right? If you have 2 states that you want to switch between, a toggle is a great way to do that. You can show and hide reference lines. You can take things in and out of your analyses. We often take excuse withdrawals out of our analyses with a toggle. And it functions just like any toggle would, right? You click it and it changes. In this case, it's going to turn a colorblind palette on. You click it again and it turns that palette off, right? Easy swap between 2 things. Another thing you can do is a stepper. So steppers are cool if you want to incrementally change the value of something or kind of slowly walk someone through something or walk them through multiple steps. People know what to do with plus and minus icons, right? If I click this, my top N is going to go down to 4. If I click the plus, it's going to go up, and you can go all the way up as high as you want to go. The next thing is drop-down menus. So obviously Tableau provides those beautiful drop-down menus that I just showed you, but I don't love them. And if I have a main filter on a page, typically like a term or an academic year, like a time frame filter, I will often create my own drop-down menu for it that's kind of front and center on the page. They function just like any drop-down menu would, right? You open it, you get a pick list, you change whatever is, you want to select, and it will change, in this case, the map. A nice alternative to drop-downs are tabs. This is probably my favorite one. I use these things all of the time, and I like them because they're very visual, right? You can see exactly what is selected in this map without having to open up a drop-down menu, right? All the options are visible to you, which means less clicks, right? Less clicks for your user, and it's visual. So if somebody screenshots this and shares it out in a PowerPoint, or in a Teams message or something, you can see exactly what is selected and kind of what's filtered. The next thing I'm going to show is a carousel. Carousels are great if you don't have a ton of space on your dashboard, which, let's be real, we never do. People want lots and lots of things thrown into our dashboards. But if we put it all on there, we're going to completely overwhelm them cognitively, right? Their cognitive load is going to go through the roof. So carousels are a great way to put a lot of stuff in the same area of a dashboard, and then your users can navigate through it by clicking the buttons, the little circles on the bottom, or using the arrows to kind of go through each one. So really great problem, or really great to solve the problem of real estate. As our accordion menu. So this kind of solves the same problem. When you don't have a ton of space on your dashboard, you can expand and collapse different areas, right? In this case, we're just doing different chart types and little things, but I will show you an example here in a minute that we have at MiraCosta where you can put a lot of stuff in these and save yourself tons and tons of space by just expanding and collapsing different areas. There's also a seventh thing that is hiding here in plain sight, which is this navigation menu. I built this using the same 5-step process that I'm going to show to you guys in a minute. I love using these. Again, similar to tabs, they're very visual. They let your users see exactly what is out there for them. This is nice if you don't want to use the default tabs at the top of your dashboards. Instead, you want to have just things all in one dashboard space. The menu is great for that. So I also want to show you a couple of examples of how we use these at MiraCosta because I'm obsessed with these things. One thing that I do a lot is this is basically a toggle to turn tables on and off, right? It's set up the same way, it just looks like a button. But now with WCAG, we have to show folks tables. So we're adding this to all of our dashboards so users can switch back and forth between tables and a chart view. And then here are those tabs. They're designed a little bit differently, but here it's just showing, what's available to show the different demographic breakdowns of our students, all within that nice little tabular interface. And here's that accordion menu. This is actually the first accordion menu I ever built. This is why I built this, because we had our student profile dashboard where we had a ton of stuff that we collect, each term. And we had to put it all on the same dashboard for some reason. And that was just a lot of information. So just allowing people to kind of selectively show and hide what they want to see. And then navigation menus. I love these things. This is from our suite of MIS QA dashboards where we have people look at their data before we submit it. This is going through, several SG variables so the users can come in, click on what they want, and then the data changes for them. So just a couple of examples of how, we're using these things in higher ed. So how do we build this, right? Let's talk about the 5-step process. So everything that I show you is going to use the same process. We're going to build out some calculations and parameters and stuff. But the main logic that I want you all to keep in mind and kind of keep coming back to if you ever get lost is all we're really doing is setting up an interface that allows our users to click a thing to do a thing, right? If just always come back to that because that is the logic. That is what we are doing here. We're going to click a thing to do a thing. So let's take a look at the 5 steps. The first step we're going to do is we're going to create a parameter. Now this is it's going to be a parameter for whatever UI element we are creating. So whether it's a toggle or whether it's tabs or whether it's a stepper, you're going to have a toggle parameter, a stepper parameter, etc. And then once you have the parameter created, you're going to create a sheet in Tableau that looks like a UI element. And this is kind of like the secret sauce. Because all of the things that I just showed you, right? The toggle, the stepper, the drop-down menu and pick list and tabs and carousel and accordion menu and navigation menu, they are all just sheets in Tableau, right? That look like other stuff, right? They look like tabs or they look like a carousel button, right? But they're not. They are just marks in Tableau that I've gotten kind of creative with. And I'll also say these are all very basic marks. They're shapes, they're bars, they're lines. There's nothing here where you're going to have to know how to do any kind of, crazy chart types. This is also probably my favorite step in the process, step 2, because you get to be super creative, right? I have shown you in that first workbook one way to design these things. In the demo today, I'm going to go through one way to create, spoiler alert, tabs. But you can create them any way you want. You probably saw a different design for some of the elements in the examples I had from our MiraCosta dashboards, right? So just get creative with it and kind of have fun. So then once you have that sheet that looks like a UI element, then you're going to go use that parameter that you made from step 1, right? Parameters are fantastic, but you have to tell Tableau what to do with them or they won't do anything. So whether it's swapping sheets or swapping metrics or dynamic reference lines or changing top ends, whatever it is, your parameter has to go do something. And then because we do not want to use those default inputs, like those drop-down menus that Tableau provides to us, we need to wire things up to a parameter action. So we're going to add a parameter action to our dashboard. This is the thing that's going to allow your user to click a thing, which is the sheet from step 2, to do a thing, which is whatever you told your parameter to do. And in an ideal world, this would be a 4-step process. This would be the end and we would be done. But we're not in an ideal world, and there's actually a 5th step. This is a super hacky step, and I'll talk more about it when we get to it. We need to override some default behavior that Tableau does with a filter action. It's going to do some stuff that's going to create some wonky UX, and we don't want wonky UX, right? We want 5-star Yelp reviews. So we're going to have to implement this filter action to achieve that sweet spot quadrant. Okay, so this is the process. Create a parameter, create a UI sheet, use the parameter, add a parameter action, and then add a filter action. So let's stop talking about it. Let's go build something. And like I said earlier, spoiler, we're building tabs, my favorite one. I use these all the time. But just as a reminder, when you click on a tab, it's going to change color. In this case, it's going to get turned blue. It's also going to get this underline, which is, if you notice, has nice rounded corners on it. So we'll have a nice little rounded corner moment, and then it's going to filter the map. So let's do it. So step 1, we are going to go in and we're going to create a parameter. Now, in this case, these tabs represent each region. If you were doing this like the one I showed you before for demographics, you would have a demographic parameter. In this case, it's going to be a region parameter. So let's do step 1 and create the parameter for our UI element. I'm going to go here to region, and I'm just going to right click it and go down to create parameter. And Tableau does all the work for me, which is really helpful. Thank you, Tableau. It names it, it sets the data type and the current value, and it pipes in all of the values, so I didn't have to lift a single finger on my keyboard. And then with that, step 1 is done, right? We've created our parameter for our region. Let's now move on to step 2, my favorite step. We're going to create a sheet that looks like tabs. So tabs are it's just text, right? So we're going to grab region and throw it onto columns. And we'll throw it onto text, and we'll hide this header. And this could be it. It could be as simple as that. You could be done, but I'm not done, because we have some of that wonky UX I was talking about. When I hover over a text mark in Tableau, notice how it gets this black outline around it. That's kind of weird, right? Tabs in the real world don't do that. They also don't turn blue when you click on them. That's real weird. People are going to see that and be like, huh, well, that's strange. Why is this tab blue? We don't want people to feel weird. So we're going to fix that. We're going to do that by changing this to a shape. So instead of using this default text mark, we're going to change it to a shape. And Tableau is going to make it a little open circle. We're going to change that shape using my favorite shape of all time, a transparent shape. So if you all are unfamiliar with transparent shapes, this is just a shape that has no color and no stroke applied. It's clear. It's a clear shape. There's no color on it. I use these so often that I force them to the top of my Tableau repository. I can't remember the last time I made a dashboard that did not use a transparent shape. The Flair-Ledge twins also have a fantastic blog post about all the use cases for transparent shapes. So definitely, I have the link to that in that blog I shared up top. But definitely check that out. And you're going to open this and you're thinking, where's my shape? There's nothing here. There is. You just can't see it, right? We got a transparent shape. So it looks clear. So you're going to have to hover. And when you click on that, you'll see now my data item gets that transparent shape assigned. Then we'll click OK. And now notice when I hover over each of these, there's no longer that black outline around my text. And when I click on it, it doesn't turn blue, right? It does something else that we'll deal with later. But there's not that weird blue box, right? So that's going to be a lot better for our users. So the next thing we need to do, and this is going to bleed a little bit into step 3 because we are going to use the parameter to color code, but we want to change the text to be blue when it's selected and gray when it's not, right, by the parameter. So we're going to do that with a calculated field. I'm going to show the parameter as well so you can see it. So basically what we want right now, central is selected by the region. We want a calculated field that's going to return true when this region equals the region parameter. So I'm going to open up the calculated field window using my all-time favorite hotkey. I know people who have seen this presentation or any presentation of mine are sick of me talking about it, but it's Alt-A-C. It brought it up on my other screen. It brings up the calculated field window. I use this thing hundreds of times a day. It's a great one to have in your back pocket. Okay, so I'm going to call this one P dot region. I always put a P dot in front of fields that contain a parameter. That just reminds me and triggers my brain that, hey, this field's going to change based on a parameter. It's also helpful because it groups all of your parameterized fields together in the data pane. So just a helpful organizational tip. And this is going to be really simple. We're just going to say, does my region equal my region parameter? That's the whole calculation right there. This is going to return true if it does and false if it doesn't. And now when you'll see when I throw p.region onto color, nothing happened, which is actually right? So something did happen. You just didn't see it. I'm going to show my color legend. There is a color applied here, right? Region true is orange and false is blue. But I can't see it here. Does anybody know why? Okay, I'll just tell you why. It's because this is a transparent shape, right? It is trying to apply blue and orange to a transparent shape, which is by default clear. It doesn't inherit color properties. So why would I do this? Well, the short answer is I am lazy. And if I can get out of writing calculated fields, I will. So I'm going to use one of what I think is a very underrated feature in Tableau, which is match mark labels. So if you go into label and font, or excuse me, match mark color, and select match mark color, you will see the text changes to match the color of this mark. So if I change this back to a shape, you'll see my shapes are orange and blue, and now my text is orange and blue, and I didn't have to write any calculations. If I didn't do this, I would have had to write a calculated field for when the region was false and when it was true, and I have to put them both onto label and I have to form them separately, and I'm too lazy for that. I don't want to do that. So this is a really, this is a hack I use a lot to leverage those match mark colors. And then let's go ahead and change the colors, right? We don't want the orange and blue. We want, I made it this TC26 blue for true. And then false, if you remember in the demo that I showed you, is gray, right? I made it this nice, like, calm gray neutral. I'm actually going to make it this pink right now. Don't ever do this in your workbooks. I'm changing it to this pink for demonstration purposes later. I'm going to keep it a mystery for now. But now what you can see is when I change my region parameter to east, it turns blue and all the other ones are pink. If I change it to south, same thing. So that's it. That's step 2. We have now made a sheet that looks like tabs and will function with tabs when we put them onto our dashboard. Now we need to go use this parameter. So the main functionality of this parameter was to filter this map. Like I said, the last color coding that those tabs kind of bled into this one. So we already have a field we can use. We have this p.region. I'm going to put it onto filters and just retain the true. And that is going to keep the region that is selected by the parameter, right? Let me show that just so you can see. Right, it's south. If I change it to central, now I'm going to see central on the map, east, etc. So that's the main functionality. But do you all remember that rounded corner moment? These underlines that are happening for each of the tabs are actually blank objects that I am controlling with dynamic zone visibility. So let's do that. So on the dashboard, to get that effect, I'm going to drag a container out and I'm going to fill it up with 7 blank objects, right? 1, 2, oops, I don't want to be horizontal. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when you have them all in there, you can double click on any one of the blank objects, the little gray tab, to grab the whole container. And make sure you distribute these evenly. This way, when things start disappearing with your dynamic zones, you're not going to get things all super wonky and weird spacing. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to color code every other one of these to be that bright blue color and give them those rounded corners. So we'll make them the bright blue And we'll make this one bright blue, and we'll round the corners. And you can see, I'm not going to do them all. It's going to start to come into effect. You'll see that it's starting to look like underlines. Fast forward to where they're all formatted. It'll look something like this. So it's just a bunch of blank objects. Then we're going to grab tabs, the sheet we created, and throw it into the dashboard and hide the title. And Tableau is going to be a little bit of a jerk. I'm going to pull these out of the container so they don't mess up my spacing. And now what you'll see is we have a situation where we have these underlines that these blank objects that are going to function as underlines. And like I said, we're going to control these with dynamic zones. So what we're going to do is create some calculated fields to control those zones. If you've never used dynamic zone visibility before, it's basically like a data-driven light switch where you're just turning on different zones of your dashboard. In this case, our zone is just a blank object, right? Anything can be a zone. A zone could be a whole container full of stuff. But in this case, we're just going to turn these blanks on and off, which means we need to have 4 light switches, one for each of the underlines. These are just going to be calculated fields that result in a true or a false, right? They're going to be Boolean fields. And I'm going to build these calculated fields the lazy way, which is right here from my dashboard. And I'm going to do that by clicking on a sheet, doesn't matter what sheet, and then using that hotkey I talked about before, Alt-A-C, and now I can build out my calculations right here on the dashboard. So we're going to need a calculated field for each one of these. So we'll call this first one P.Central. This, you have to spell it right. This is going to control this blank object. And we're just going to say, does that region parameter equal central? That's a whole calculation, right? So when region is central, this will be true. And when it's false, when it's not, it will be false. And that will serve as the light switch for this. Let's do 3 more using that hotkey, Alt-A-C. We'll do this P.East, and we'll just say, does the region parameter equal east? Alt-A-C again. You're going to know Alt-A-C by the end of this. And we will say, does the region parameter equal, south? And one more time, Alt-A-C for P.West. And we'll say, does the region parameter equal west? And now I've got 4 light switches to control these. So to control dynamic zones, you just grab whatever your zone is, in this case, the blank object, go over to the layout pane, check this box for control visibility using value, and Tableau will pop open this extra dropdown where you can then select P.West. And as soon as I click that, bye, it's gone. We're going to do the same thing for south. We're going to grab that underline. We're going to control the visibility using P.South. Bye. You have to use that voice, by the way. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So then this next one, we're going to control with P.East. We're going to control that visibility using P.East. Oh, and it didn't go. Bye. Probably because I didn't say it that way. No, it's because east is selected by a parameter, right? That value right now is true. So we want that to stay. But central, we want to disappear. So here we'll go over to control visibility using value, and we will do P.Central, and bye, and now it's gone. And now you'll see as I change these, those underlines go right with those little tabs. So you get a nice little rounded corner underline. But the whole point of this presentation is I don't want to use this, right? Get out of here. I don't want that. I want to be able to click on this. So to do that, we'll move on to step 4. And we'll create a parameter action. So let's go up to Dashboard and Actions. And this is the interface. Talk about wonky UX. The dropdown to add an action is the bottom left. That's okay. So you can go to Add Action. We're going to change the parameter action. So this is how you add a parameter action. And this is what the interface looks like. First and foremost, you need to name this parameter, right? I mentioned up top, I hate reverse engineering my old workbooks because past Lisa could be lazy and not name these actions. And then you get into an action happy dashboard and you've got parameter 1, parameter 2, parameter 3, parameter 70, right? And you don't know what they do. So please name them for you or like for Peter and Darnell if you inherit a workbook later on. So you know what these parameters do. So here I'm just going to call this select region. And then we're going to have to tell Tableau what the source sheet is. This is the sheet that the user is going to interact with, the sheet that we created in step 2 to control this parameter. So in our case, it's tabs, right? We built tabs for step 2, so we'll just leave that checked. The run action is how the user is going to interact with tabs. Well, they're going to click, right? We're just going to leave this on select. You could change it to hover. I find that this has more limited use cases. It's really easy to trigger a hover action. So I like people to be intentional with select. Menu is almost a little too intentional. So I think select's the happy medium. Then you have to tell Tableau what the target parameter is. This is the parameter we created in step 1. So it's the region parameter. And then Tableau needs to know what field to populate the region parameter with, or what value are we going to send to region parameter? Well, we're going to send region, right? So what this is saying in English is when the user clicks on tabs, send the region field to the region parameter, right? That's it. That's what that's saying. So now we're going to click OK and OK, and I'm going to put this in presentation mode. And now you'll see when I click on these, ho-ho, they work. I'm clicking on them, but now you'll know why I made them pink. What's going on? Why are they not staying that fantastic pink color? Well, Tableau is trying to be helpful, but it's not. You'll notice that if you select a mark, right, in anything else, right, well, I'm going to click on Pennsylvania, all the other states get grayed out, right? It thinks, oh, you really want to focus on Pennsylvania, so I'm going to gray everything else out so this is really prominent. Well, that's what it's doing here, because this is just a sheet. So it's treating it like it would like data, right? Any other viz. So that when I click on this, it's graying out the other marks. That's that wonky UX we have to get rid of with that step 5, right? With a filter action. So let's get rid of this, because this is going to be kind of weird. Oh, let me show you one other thing before I do that. Oops. So in this case, it's weird, right? It grays it out. But if you go back to the toggle example, it actually breaks the toggle, right? If you don't do step 5. So notice here, if I click on this toggle one time, it works. It turns the colorblind palette on. But then I decide I don't want the colorblind palette, so I click it again one time, and it doesn't do anything, right? If I click it again, you'll see, oh, okay, it is turning off. So what's happening is Tableau's selecting it, right? Notice this black outline around the toggle. If I were to click on any mark down here, you'll notice the mark gets a black outline around it. Well, that's what Tableau's doing, but we don't want it to select it. We just want to click on it and be done. So this is that behavior we have to override. And we're going to do it with some dummy fields. So dummy calculations are just nothing variables. They're not going to do anything. They're dummies. So I'm going to use that hotkey. You all got to know it by now. Alt-AC. We're going to call this dummy 0. And it's just going to be the number 0 in quotation marks. It doesn't have to be 0. It could be any value, but it has to be different than your second dummy variable, which in my case, I'm just going to call dummy 1. I've gotten in the habit of using dummy and 1, or 0 and 1, but you can use whatever, right? True, false, A, B, X, Y, does whatever you want, right? Whatever you can remember. Just make sure they're not the same. Click OK. And then I'm just going to hold Control to grab both of these and drag them onto detail, and nothing happens. Good, nothing should happen because these are dummies. But then back on the dashboard, we're going to go back to that dashboard interface. I'm going to take you there with a hotkey because I think you all are ready for the hotkey. Control-Shift-D is going to bring up the interface for your actions. Control-Shift-D, I'll say it again. So now we're going to go down to this add action, and instead of changing the parameter, we're going to add a filter action. Again, be kind to yourself and anyone else who works on this and name it. We'll call this deselect region. Just like before, you have to tell Tableau what sheet you're interacting with, and it's still tabs. To change the run action to select, why this is different in a filter action compared to a parameter action, I don't know, but make sure you have it on select. And then the target sheet is going to be the same as the source sheet. But don't you dare just do this, which you're going to want to do. It will break. It will not work. So you actually have to select it from the drop down. This is weird. But just make sure you remember to do it from the drop down. And then when you clear the selection, make sure you show all values. If this filter action does not work for you, it is likely due to these two things, either not selecting it from the dropdown or not showing all the values. Both of these will result in your tabs disappearing off your dashboard. And you're like, what happened? It's probably one of these two. Then you're going to grab those dummy fields you created before, those selected fields, dummy 0 and dummy 1. And these two things are basically just going to filter against each other, which is going to have absolutely no effect on a filter because they're dummies. But it is going to reset the view so that Tableau doesn't select these marks. So the Flare Lash twins actually shared this same thing in their presentation. I was really happy to say that they also have no idea why this works. Nobody knows why it works, but it does, which is frustrating. I don't like when I don't know why things work, but this is the hack, and I'll show it to you again on the toggle. But here, now when I click, let's put it in presentation. Now when I click on these tabs, they're not going to get grayed out. They're going to stay that pink, right? And if let's go in, let's just change this. Let's make it gray so we're not staring at that color anymore. Now you'll see, oh, what did I click on? Oh man, I didn't practice that. So now it's got that selected. There we go. Okay, so now you'll see when you click on these, it's a nice user interface where things aren't getting grayed out. Things look really smooth. It looks like it would on a regular dashboard. Now, that was a really weird hack. So I want to show it to you one more time on the toggle. So again, we're going to use that hotkey, Control-Shift-D. We are going to add a filter. We're going to name that filter deselect toggle. The source sheet is our toggle sheet. The run action is select. And don't you dare do this. Grab it from the dropdown and grab your toggle. Show all the values when this gets cleared. And then the two dummy fields you created are going to filter each other, but they're not actually going to filter each other. They're not going to do jack. But now you'll see when I click on this toggle, I only have to click it one time. Uh-oh, what did I do? Did I mess up? I broke something. Where's the deselect toggle? What happened? Oh, silly me. I didn't put dummy 0 and 1 on the actual toggle. Let's go do that. That's why it didn't work. So dummy 0 and 1, throw it onto detail, and now do the example where you want to click it one time. The fields actually have to be on your sheet in order for it to work. So make sure you put the fields on your sheet. And now it's a one-click toggle. No more wonky UX. A nice, smooth interface for your users. And those, again, are the 5 steps. So you can start creating things like this in your own dashboard. So you're going to create a parameter. You're going to create a UI sheet. You're going to use that parameter. You're going to add a parameter action. And then you're going to do that super hacky filter action so that your users can click a thing to do a thing. And it's a lot of information to take in. So again, here are those resources that I kind of talked about throughout. I will hopefully Sam or Kim put these in the chat, but there's a blog about how to build these things from the workbook. There's also the link to the Tableau Public workbook. And then a third blog I haven't even talked about, all about how to create navigation menus, because that wasn't in the original blog. It was newer for this presentation. But these are all the resources that you need to start building your own custom user interface and retire your own dashboards if you still have them out there. And with that, I've seen the chat going off, but I can't present and look at the chat at the same time. So if there are questions in there, Kim or Sam, can you let me know? I did just say trashboard.
The only question I saw was about the recording, but I don't think there were any for your presentation.
Okay, yeah, so this is recorded. This original session at TC was also recorded. So we can put the link in there if you want to see it presented slightly differently for other people. Okay, well, if there are no questions, oh, you can't take that survey anymore. Sam already talked about this up top, but our next session is going to be a collaborative meeting with the higher ed TUG, who I've already just saw that Roshni's here, and Sam also co-leads the higher ed TUG. We're going to have Andy Kriebel. We mentioned him up top. He's a self-proclaimed GOAT, greatest of all time in Tableau. He's going to be showing us all different types of use cases with education data and answering a lot of different types of scenarios. Yeah, we also got him to pose for this picture when we were at TC. So I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He did not. This is that's AI. But yeah, we hope to see you there. We'll get that into the chat. Maybe Sam or Kim could throw the link to this in the chat. We'd love to see you there. We're calling it Getting Schooled by Andy Kriebel. We'd love to see you there. If you also want to present, we would love to have you. We are not afraid to just send you emails. We will cold call you and ask you if we see something on Tableau Public that we would like you to present. So we'd love to have volunteers. So if you'd like to do that, you can get this QR code. You can also just email us either at our CCC TUG email or any of our individual emails. We should probably take our Twitter handles off of there at this point because Twitter is long gone and we don't use it anymore. So thank you again. Thank you to Peter and Darnell for being here. We did call them and they were willing to present. So we thank them and we appreciate you all being here. And until August, we will see you then.